Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, yesterday the American people finally heard at length directly from Special Counsel Robert Mueller. In his testimony before the House Judiciary Committee and Intelligence Committees, the Special Counsel gave voice to his report on Russian interference in our 2016 presidential election and President Trump's obstruction of the investigation into it. What the American people and I heard from Special Counsel Mueller was an explanation and confirmation of the deeply troubling findings and conclusions of his investigation and his written report. He told us that the Trump campaign welcomed the help of a hostile foreign power, Russia, to influence our 2016 presidential election, accepted that help, lied repeatedly about it, and benefited from it. He confirmed that there was voluminous evidence that President Trump had obstructed justice through his efforts to interfere with and impede the special counsel's investigation. Most importantly, contrary to the president's claims, the special counsel confirmed that his investigation had not exonerated the president of the crime of obstruction of justice. When asked, Robert Mueller made this crystal clear, testifying that, quote, the president was not exculpated for the acts that he allegedly committed. In his testimony yesterday, Special Counsel Mueller did not back away from any of his written report's findings. The American people saw and heard him emphatically defend them. Special Counsel Mueller, a decorated war hero, gave every single American cause for deep alarm when he called Russian interference in support of the Trump campaign, quote, among the most serious challenges to American democracy that he had ever seen. He agreed that it was, quote, unpatriotic and wrong to seek campaign help from a foreign power. And he decried President Trump's failure to acknowledge or respond to the systematic and sweeping Russian interference, warning, quote, they're doing it as we sit here. Yesterday, Donald Trump tried to defend himself in tweets while Robert Mueller defended our democracy and his testimony. The special counsel's testimony and events of the past 2 weeks have led to the undeniable conclusion that it is time for the House of Representatives to begin a formal impeachment proceeding against President Trump. I stand here today on the Senate floor, the place where an unprecedented trial would occur, understanding the gravity of this moment in our nation's history. I stand here today because I believe we have reached the moment where we must stand up for the survival of our democracy. Before I came to this decision, I said I needed to hear directly from Special Counsel Mueller and other witnesses, that Congress needed to obtain documents, and that we needed to gather all the facts and evidence. I had hoped that the House Judiciary Committee's investigation would get us answers to the questions about the president's obstructive conduct that remained after Special Counsel Mueller issued his report. And I had hoped that the president, who continues to insist that he did nothing wrong, would cooperate, and that the House Judiciary Committee would receive testimony and other evidence from the Trump campaign and Trump administration witnesses. That has not happened, and that's because of continued and deliberate presidential obstruction. Just listen to the numerous roadblocks that the president has put in Congress's way since Special Counsel Mueller issued his report in March. President Trump has denied the entire Congress access to the full, unredacted version of the Mueller report and its underlying materials. President Trump has claimed that key witnesses like former White House counsel Donald McGahn and former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks are immune from testifying or simply don't have to comply with congressional subpoenas. President Trump has opposed testimony from 2 of the special counsel's top deputies and restricted the scope of the Mueller testimony. And President Trump has vowed to fight any future congressional subpoenas. What we have seen from President Trump is a pattern of repeated and baseless denial, baseless defiance of the House's constitutional authority to investigate, especially subpoenas, seeking evidence that the president obstructed justice and abused his power. The president has engaged in stonewalling that shows an unprecedented disregard and contempt for a co-equal branch of government under our Constitution. Disregard and contempt that would make Richard Nixon blush with envy. Taken together, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's testimony and the president's obstruction of the congressional investigation compel us to immediately begin a formal impeachment inquiry. I do not come to this decision lightly. An impeachment proceeding against the President of the United States is a matter of the highest constitutional magnitude. But when the evidence demonstrates that the President of the United States obstructed the special counsel's investigation, and when the facts and the evidence demonstrate that the President of the United States is continuing to obstruct justice, seeking to derail a legitimate congressional investigation into the lawfulness of his conduct while in office, then the Congress must do its constitutional duty and act. The acts of obstruction that Special Counsel Mueller described in his report and in his testimony yesterday to Congress are impeachable offenses, a view shared by myriad constitutional scholars, attorneys, and prosecutors. The President improperly pressed then FBI Director James Comey to drop the investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and subsequently fired Comey because of the Russia investigation, confirmed yesterday by the special counsel's testimony. The President unlawfully demanded that then Attorney General Jeff Sessions reverse his recusal from the Russia investigation and take over the investigation, confirmed yesterday by the special counsel's testimony. The President engaged in witness tampering and falsification of government records when he directed White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Robert Mueller and later pressured McGahn to deny that that had happened. Confirmed yesterday by the special counsel's testimony. The President engaged in a cover-up when he sought to prevent public disclosure of evidence about the infamous June 9, 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Confirmed yesterday by the special counsel's testimony. The President abused his constitutional authority by holding out the prospect of pardons in exchange for witnesses' silence. Confirmed yesterday by the special counsel's testimony. That Robert Mueller found so much evidence that this president committed impeachable offenses might be shocking, but it should not be surprising. After all, look at what we've learned about this president during his 2.5 years in office and what he is willing to say and what he is willing to do. Did an American president put family members in high-level White House policy positions requiring security clearances that should never have been issued? Yes, he did. Did an American president repeatedly show infatuation with and express sympathy for authoritarian figures around the globe, most notably Vladimir Putin, the man who interfered with the 2016 election to President Trump's benefit? Yes, he did. Did an American president face multiple, repeated, incredible allegations of sexual assault by more than a dozen women, sexual assault that he bragged about on tape? Yes, he did. Did an American president become known as individual number one, in effect an unindicted co-conspirator on charges of federal campaign finance law violations that were brought against his lawyer, Michael Cohen, in New York? Yes, he did. Did an American president seek to divide Americans based on race, religion, and ethnicity, directing racist language at elected members of Congress and urging others to celebrate that hate? Sadly, yes, he did. And we've watched as Donald Trump has given the Constitution a stress test, the likes of which we haven't seen in 230 years. We've watched him attack judges and seek to intimidate the judiciary. We've watched him disregard Congress's co-equal role in government under Article 1 of the Constitution, whether by spending unappropriated money on his border wall, relying on acting government officials to eviscerate the Senate's advice and consent function, or ignoring legitimate oversight requests. We've watched the president sue Congress in order to block release of his tax returns and refuse to disclose any meaningful information about his business operations, especially sources of foreign investment and loans, raising alarming questions about violation of the Constitution's Emoluments Clause. This president relishes attacking the freedom of the press and has incited violence against journalists for exercising their First Amendment rights. Donald Trump is tearing at the fabric of our democracy literally every single day. And yesterday, the Congress and the American people heard the facts and evidence that Congress can and should act to hold him accountable. Faced with impeachable offenses, it is the Constitution that entrusts the Congress with the responsibility of deciding whether to remove a president of the United States from office for high crimes and misdemeanors. Indeed, in the face of evidence of serious and persistent misconduct that is harmful to the nation, Congress would be abusing its constitutional discretion and setting a dangerous precedent if it did not begin an impeachment inquiry. If the evidence of obstruction of justice and other wrongdoing that Robert Mueller explained yesterday is not evidence of impeachable offenses, what is? What damage would a future president have to inflict in order to trigger an impeachment inquiry? I have no illusions about where an impeachment inquiry will lead. My Republican colleagues have thus far shown themselves unwilling to hold this president accountable. They believe that everything is, quote, all over. But the evidence in the Mueller report and the special counsel's testimony yesterday explaining it, defending it, and reaffirming it compel us to do what is right and what is necessary. And that is to exercise our authority and begin an impeachment proceeding against Donald Trump. Nothing less than our democracy is at stake. I call upon my colleagues in the House of Representatives to do so. I yield the floor.